I've argued that the republic has already evolved so that social media is effectively running the country for anything that social media cares enough about. But in the middle of a national emergency, our totally out-of-touch leaders, Pelosi and Schumer, and really, they are so disconnected from the zeitgeist, they failed to read the room in a way that's just astounding. Because right in front of us, they flew into town and they just broke the system to throw some pork in there. So what happened? Well, of course, the Republicans complained, but they weren't complaining to the Democrats. They complained to their bosses. The Republicans took it up to their bosses. No, not the president. The president is not the boss of Congress. You are. You are the bosses of Congress. And what happened when the Republicans kicked it up to their bosses? Well, we weren't happy, were we? I've been saying for a while that the republic has evolved. No longer do we elect smart people, have them ride their horse off to Washington and make some votes for us. Maybe we find out someday what they did. That was the original system. It was fine in a world with no social media and people weren't that connected communication-wise. But now we are. And I've argued that the republic has already evolved so that social media is effectively running the country for anything that social media cares enough about. You know, there's 99% of government we don't really care about. It's, collecting the garbage sort of stuff. But for the 1% that we get excited about and the public can understand at some level, the public is driving the car. If you want to see a good example of that, you just saw one of the best ones you'll ever see, which is when Pelosi and Schumer parachuted into town to kill the relief deal by adding a bunch of pork to it. That's business as usual, usually. Usually, the whole concept of making laws is if you have a funding bill, everybody throws their pork on there, and it's actually part of the process. Because if you can't get the senator from this state to vote for it, maybe you can't get anything passed, and the only way you can bribe that senator is to, fund a military base in his district or something like that. So the pork has a functional purpose, and mostly the public just says, I hate it, but I got other things to think about. Just, make something happen. It doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah, I know there's pork and it's sort of useful, but it's not. I'll just let that go. But in the middle of a national emergency, our totally out-of-touch leaders, Pelosi and Schumer, and really, they are so disconnected from the zeitgeist, they failed to read the room in a way that's just astounding. Because right in front of us, they flew into town and they just broke the system to throw some pork in there. So what happened? Well, of course, the Republicans complained, but they weren't complaining to the Democrats. They complained to their bosses. The Republicans took it up to their bosses. No, not the president. The president is not the boss of Congress. You are. You are the bosses of Congress. And what happened when the Republicans kicked it up to their bosses? Well, we weren't happy, were we? Because in this case, the pork is not okay. It's not okay with the Democrats. It's not okay with the Republicans. And let me propose a rule for you, something to watch. If you see Mark Cuban using gross profanity on social media, telling the government to get its act together, as he did, and you see me using gross profanity in exactly the same mission, it's probably going to happen. In other words, if you can piss off Mark Cuban and me at the same time, you're probably pissing off everybody, right? You're probably pissing off everybody. And if we get that mad, so that we're going to just take the filter off and say, as we did, I don't want to repeat the words, but as Mark Cuban put it in the cleanest, most leadership way, and by the way, he's a superstar in this, he's doing great. He said this: do your effing job. And I don't need any details. That's the beginning of the conversation, and that's the end of the conversation. I don't want to hear because. I don't want to hear you can't do it. I don't want to hear about the process. I don't hear why it's a good idea to do it your way. Nope. Just do your effing job. And you saw that it looks like they took the pork out of there and they're getting it done. Now, this is the cleanest example you've seen of the Republic is not the elected people in charge. They're only in charge when you and I don't care and we're not watching. But when we care and we understand the topic, yeah, this was easy, pork, no pork, and we're engaged, your elected people are not in charge, not even close. You, the public, made them change their mind right in front of you. And there's no question about what happened. The Democrats did not cave to the Republicans. They caved to you, the public. You're in charge.